Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mission for Freedom. Happy Thursday to you. It is February the 20th, and I hope you're warm wherever you are. It is freezing here in the Midwest, but whatever the temperature is, it is wonderful to have you here today. It's going to be a great show. Hey, wherever you're watching from, we're live on X America News and Rumble. Wherever you're watching from, if you would like, subscribe, follow, share. I know that's probably not a big deal to you, but that love goes a long way for us podcasters. So we would love if you would do that. And then share. I know that sometimes we don't think about that, but if this resonates with you, if it touches you, I would love for you to share. And then we could not do this without you and our sponsors. We have two amazing sponsors that you'll hear from today. One, My Pillow. Two, Ina Cyrus, our amazing producer. Thank you, Ina. She has lutfstudio.com, and you'll hear from her as well. And we wouldn't be here without y'all. So if you can use these products, if you can find a way to gift them to somebody, go ahead and do that, because we can't do this without you. We just can't. So we would just want to say a big thank you. And then of course Andy Scheckman with Miles Franklin Precious Metals, with gold and silver. And we'll talk about them in a little bit. But we just want to say thank you to our amazing sponsors and to the amazing Ina Cyrus, who is the producer and the brains behind everything. Thank you, Ines. I so appreciate you. And we are live. So if you all have any questions, I'm sure that you will, because this information was mind blowing to me. We are welcoming to the Mission for Freedom show today Trevor Loudon. If you have not heard of him, he is from New Zealand. And he is an author, a speaker, a filmmaker, and he calls himself a commie hunter. You can find him on X and see a lot of his just his thoughts on communism and some of the books he's written, and really most recently his comments on one of President Trump's most recent appointments, and that is Tulsi Gabbard. And I know we talk a lot about not following the R or the D, Republican, Democrat, in front of people's names, and really just seeking truth. And that's what I love about Trevor, is he is speaking out about this one appointment, Tulsi Gabbard. And so he's going to come and talk about this today and share some of his concerns, along with some other things that you may not have heard of, things that were new that I had never heard of. The terminology MAGA communism. Have y'all heard of that? Or multipolarity. These are incredibly fascinating words, and words that we need to know the definitions of and to be able to spot, because you can't fight an enemy that you don't even know you have, right? I mean, you have to know the enemy to be able to fight the enemy. And so that's what I love about Trevor. He is an expert in this area, y'all, like a complete expert. And so he is going to share what these things are, how we can recognize them, and then what we can do about it as Americans. I know sometimes we feel so far removed and that we can't really do anything about it, but that's a lie. We can. There are lots of things we can do. And the number one thing is to use your mouth and to use your thumbs for digital media and share the truth. But before we welcome Trevor into Mission for Freedom, I wanted to answer a question. We did a live last Thursday night, just like tonight, and we had on Andy Scheckman from Miles Franklin Precious Metals. And there was one question I didn't get to, and I wanted to get to that question today. And that was from Jason Q. And he asked a question, and he said, if I want to pass wealth to my kids, is gold a better option than savings in a bank? And I can 110% assuredly tell you, yes, gold is better than the dollar, because, as Andy Scheckman says, gold is wealth. You're not investing and trying to create wealth. Gold is wealth. It's been wealth for thousands of years. It is still wealth. This is what I wanted to convey about the dollar. So, it's called fiat currency, and that word fiat basically means declaration. So the government has declared, we came off the gold standard 1971. And so then the government said, don't worry, these green certificates called dollar bills, they were just like certificates so that you could go get your gold out of the vault. But now, surprise, we're just saying that these green dollar bills have value because the government said so. Well, you also probably remember the government saying that those toxic COVID shots were safe and effective. Do you remember that? So, take them for what they're worth. I just think it's really important to know that gold has stood the test of time. And it is one of the very best, really, legacies you can leave your kids. I had a friend who purchased some silver from me, and she put some silver in each of her kids' stockings. And it really gives a great opportunity, even to adults, if you give gifts instead of giving cash, give silver. It's about $32 an ounce today. Gold is going to hit a record high, y'all, of $3,000. This is historic. And I just want to point out, I think some people don't really know this, but I want to point out, so gold has never hit 3,000 before. But if we look back to the value of gold over the last 10 years, we can see that it really started taking off in 2020. And really, we see volatility and changes when people are afraid. And we see them go to the precious metals market when there's massive uncertainty geopolitically. And so you can see in 2020, there was a pretty big spike. And you can see how it was very level for quite some time, and then in 2020, it started spiking. And then it really started spiking around the election time. And you can see the 5 year graph. And then the last one, you can see it's really almost a straight line within the last 60 days. And I just think it's crazy not to diversify in this area as well. I know hard assets are great, whether it's like land or houses, but you have to think about that. First of all, who has an extra 100,000 to go buy a house? I guess you could get a loan. But the nice thing with gold and silver is that silver's a little price. I mean, gold is a little pricey, $3,000, but silver is just $30 an ounce, and it's super undervalued right now. So I just encourage you to call that number on the screen, or email me at missionforfreedom@milesfranklin.com, and start investing in hard assets. This is the way it's going. We're hearing about central bank digital currency, and the banks, the London banks, the in New York City, and then also the central bank of central banks are buying up gold in record amounts that has never been seen before in history. So you have to ask yourself why. That's what Andy Scheckman said last Thursday. If you didn't see that, go back, scroll through, go on Rumble, search for Mission for Freedom, give us a follow, and then look for that episode. It was very fascinating. And he said, what's happening right now has never happened before in all of history. So you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why are banks buying up gold in record amounts? And if they are, why shouldn't we? To the best of our ability, especially seeing what's happening, geopolitically, that climate right now. So, like I said, you can email me. We can just have a conversation, or you can give me a call at the number on the screen, and let's just have a conversation. At the very minimum, just start buying an ounce of silver every other week, or 2 ounces at $60, and just start hedging against inflation and protecting your family, and just doing that consistently over time. Before you know it, you will have acquired quite a bit. So I the last thing I wanted to say about that is Andy also talked about the possibility of President Trump giving the Federal Reserve Jerome Powell a phone call and saying, "Hey, let's revalue gold." And so he was saying, as soon as gold is revalued, that could change. That could put $1 trillion into our economy just by that one phone call. So there's lots of ifs. We don't know if that's going to happen for sure, but it's just a good wisdom to diversify if nothing were to happen. And just watching the price of gold soar in the last, really, 5 years, since 2020 it started climbing, and then in the last 6 months it's been pretty much a straight line to the top. And so it's like around $2,900 today, Thursday, February 20th. And it's looking like it's going to possibly hit $3,000 an ounce very, very soon. If that's a little pricey, which that is a lot of money, try some silver. So anyway, I just really encourage you guys to you can even go to milesfranklinpreciousmetals.com, get on the website. I know when I first learned about gold, I was like, this is so overwhelming. We didn't get a class on it, sadly, in school. No one really talks about it. And so it's like, you just think you buy gold bars. Well, Andy talked about this too. One of the ways, and this is what I did when I first bought my gold and silver, is I got the coins, the gold eagles and the silver eagles. They're made in America. they are the most, they have the most value. And so I just didn't want to have any issues as it related. Like if I wanted to get my money back or what have you, it's the best investment. So give that number a call or email me and let's have a conversation today. So now we're going to head to commercial break. And then we come back, we will welcome Mr. Trevor Loudon.
Well, hello everybody, it's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. Finish this painting, but I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Trevor Loudon, welcome to the Mission for Freedom podcast. It's such an honor to have you here today. Thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure, Miriam. Thanks for inviting me.
So I hopped on your X account and I love how you describe yourself, author, filmmaker, and you use the word commie hunter. And that's not something you see every day on people's descriptions. And I absolutely love that because that's not something that probably most people know a lot about or are experts like you. But one thing I wanted to say, being a commie hunter and being a communist expert, is that you can spot communism and those red flags a mile away. And I said in the introduction, you can't fight an enemy you don't know exists or you don't know who they are. And so that is what I found very interesting about a post you made on X recently about Tulsi Gabbard. And you were saying in that video, it was a video you played, and in that video you were talking about how it's so important for America to be friends with various countries like South Korea and these other countries that we need to be unified with because we just can't take on the globe ourselves. And you have discovered, you were saying in the video, that she's been maybe not so friendly with these countries along with Israel. And so I was wondering if you could just talk about and summarize that video and where all that came from.
Look, I've been following Tulsi for a long time. I personally was at the People's Summit in Chicago in 2016. That was 3,000 communists from DSA, Communist Party USA, Workers' World Party, all gathered to stir up revolution. And she was one of the keynote speakers. And she got up there and she wowed that crowd just like she wows the crowds at CPAC. She spoke to those people in the same, she had the same message she has at CPAC, only it was couched in terms of appealing to communists rather than Christians and conservatives. She has Ever since I've been following her back from about 2012, she's been working with hardcore communists right up till February, till February 2023 was the last time she was at a communist meeting. But they are still promoting her today. She is absolutely committed to getting us in bed with Russia and China and away from all our traditional allies.
Does she
So
say that? Does she say we need to connect? I just can't imagine that people are welcoming her with open arms if she point blank is saying this out loud, or is it
I
more
just
covert?
I just had a tweet today. To deal with climate change, we've got to get much more involved with Russia and China. You know, she's very open about this. This was from 2019 when she was running for president. She works very closely with the MAGA communists. These are people like Jackson Hinkle and Hazal Din, who are trying to bring openly pro-Russian and Chinese communism into the MAGA movement. And she works with these people. They are promoting her right now. They promoted her to get the job of DNI. So yeah, she is an infiltrator, 100% an infiltrator, and very, very dangerous to our movement.
So do you think, I know this is just a question of opinion, but do you think she has the image of like JD Vance? I mean, he said some horrible things about Trump, and a lot of people had some bad things to say about him, and basically he had a change of heart, and so RFK Jr. has come over to quote unquote the MAGA side or what have you, and you're seeing President Trump bring these people into the fold who have supposedly had a change of heart. I guess my question to you is, how can she openly do these things and say these things and it not escape the MAGA eye?
Well, because the decision was made by people like Tucker Carlson and others that she was going to be the one. So Tucker and Elon Musk basically muscled anybody who opposed her. Like Todd Young, the senator from Indiana, was very worried about her. But Elon had a big talk to Todd Young, and it cleared up some misunderstandings. And now Todd Young voted for her. The decision. Anybody who tried to expose Tulsi's deep connections to communism, her ongoing promotion of Russia, China, Venezuela, Iran, Syria, every enemy of America you can imagine, her ties to Christine Ahn, one of North Korea's biggest allies in this country. If any of that was brought up, it was just suppressed. None of it got brought up in the hearings. And anybody who threatened to derail those hearings was pretty much pressured by the Trump administration, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, etc. All those senators know that Elon Musk could destroy them. All those senators know that Tucker Carlson could make their re-election very, very difficult. And both Tucker and both Elon, especially Tucker is openly pro-Russia. He says he is pro-Russia. He is trying to engineer this sort of pro-Russian group into the Trump administration, and Tulsi is their poster girl. And the Russians are so happy about this.
I could go in lots of different directions. My mind is spinning because one of the things I think about is that some of these things you're sharing, it creates a bit of cognitive dissonance because as an American, you think we've always been able to trust Tucker. Tucker died on our hill of free speech, exposing the left, all these things. And even going to Russia himself and sitting down with Putin because Biden wouldn't talk to him. I mean, as an American, you think, you don't have to agree with this communist dictator who's done a lot of evil things, who seemingly has some sense of traditional values as it relates to homosexuality, transgenderism. But he thought our country was going crazy. And it was like very easy to say, even though he's a dictator, we do align with him at least on that.
Well, see, that is the whole crux of the problem. None of that is real. That is all designed to, that's been a long-term Russian disinformation exercise going on for 25 years now to portray Putin, who is still convening communist youth conferences up until this year, who has convened three communist youth conferences in Russia, international ones with American communists there, up until this year, portray him as this Christian values, all this kind of thing. All it's designed to do is get the American conservative movement off his back and even get them accepting of his foreign policies. And Tulsi and Tucker are great champions for that point of view. Because, if you look into Tucker, when he talks about China, when he talks about social values, he's right on, 100%. Can't argue with him. When he talks about Russia, Ukraine, Putin, he lies and lies and lies and lies, conscious, knowing lies.
So
And
what about when he talks about Ukraine and he talks about how we've sent them all this money? It's been, Zelensky's a dictator. We don't know where the money's gone. In what way are you saying? I believe you. I'm just curious, like, in what ways are you saying he lies?
when you talk about the money doesn't go to Ukraine, very small amounts. They get armaments. The Ukrainians have never received what they've been promised, but Tucker plays it as though it never leaves America. That's the problem. It hasn't. Joe Biden would promise and never deliver. It doesn't go to Ukraine, then get frittered away. It never gets to Ukraine. And Tucker knows this, but he portrays it a different way. Tucker says things like, oh, the Ukraine shut down political parties. Zelensky's a tyrant because he shut down political parties. He doesn't mention he shut down the Ukrainian Communist Party, which supports Russia. He doesn't mention that the only parties that were shut down were the pro-Russian Marxist parties. Just like America shut down the Nazi parties here during World War II. He talks about Zelensky suppressing religion. All they have ever done was kick one group of pro-Russian Orthodox Church people out of a leased government building. That's the total suppression of Christianity in Ukraine. But you listen to Tucker, Zelensky's this big Bible burner, whereas Putin is the most anti-religious. Look, in Russia, there is no religious liberty. If you belong to the Orthodox Church, which is run by the KGB, you're okay. But if you want to be a Seventh-day Adventist or a Baptist or an evangelical, you cannot bring your children up in the faith. You cannot bring them to church till they're 18, and you cannot proselytize outside the walls of your church. This is Russia, the Christian family values nation. Tucker knows all this, but he deliberately distorts it. Then he goes and does complete softball interviews with Putin, with Lavrov, and even Dugin, the man who is openly calling
Yes.
for inside America, and portrays him like he's Santa Claus.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Dugan because Alexander Dugan, I didn't know who this was, but I did watch Tucker's interview. Like, it's about 20 minutes. People should go watch this. And you described Alexander Dugan as a grandfather figure. And what you're saying now is making perfect sense, Trevor, because what you're saying is that Tucker and even Dugan are talking conservatively socially. And so
Oh,
when you watch that interview, I was watching, I was trying to pick up communist red flags and things like that, the words, the buzzwords. And I was like, Dugan sounds like he aligns with America. Like, I mean, in the interview, that I don't know if it was meant to portray that, but that was the feel.
that was absolutely meant to portray that. But if you read his work, see, a lot of the American conservatives are big Dugan fans now. Tucker's a Dugan fan. Tucker is openly, when he doesn't address American audiences, when he addresses foreign audiences, he writes about causing a civil war in America to destroy America, deliberately causing a civil war. He writes about how the people of Europe should rise up and kill their leaders. But when Tucker interviews them, Tucker doesn't bring any of this up. No,
Wow.
it's just, no, let's talk about family values. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about, and you think you're interviewing Santa Claus, one of the most evil guys on the planet, Alexander Dugin, who was brought up in the KGB, who is idolized by Nazis all over the world, and both Nazis and communists idolize this guy, who has fomented revolutions all over the world and openly calls for the destruction of this country. Tucker gives him a softball interview. And it lets Lavrov, the Soviet Russian foreign minister, lie and lie and lie and lie and never calls him up once and lets Putin ramble on for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
They were not interviews. They were propaganda exercises for Russia. Tucker goes on TV and says, I'm rooting for Russia. He is not a journalist. He's a Russian propagandist. But because of his record with Fox News and championing opposition to China, all the social conservative issues come up. Well, Dugin does the same. Putin does the same. Tulsi does the same. It's all the same scam.
I just want to say thank you because now I'm not going to sleep tonight. I'm just kidding. I'm just that this is really this war of narratives and this propaganda. I mean, this has been going on for a million years, right? I mean, this is war. This is how that's how you do war, right? We remember back in the day dropping newspapers out of the helicopters to convey a certain message to the people and in various wars. And I guess what I want to ask you is what would be the reason for that? Like for an American who knows the truth, what do you think the thought is? What does Tucker or Tulsi or these folks have to gain? Is it all about money?
Well, apparently Tulsi is now worth $25 million when she was worth about $500,000 about 5 years ago. Just bought 3 big apartment complexes in Texas. I don't know. Maybe she won the lottery. I don't know. But look, no, I think Tucker's ideological. He is brought into the propaganda. He believes that Russia is a Christian nation. He believes that America has gone all woke, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where did the wokeness come from? The wokeness is communism. The wokeness came from the communist movement. It was just like, here's an example. When Blinken, the Secretary of State, met with Xi Jinping, one of the Chinese in Alaska, I think it was, they hammered him on Black Lives Matter. Look at your country. It's so racist. You have to have Black Lives Matter. It was the Chinese who ran Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
They run it, and then they blame us for it, just like the Russians and the Chinese gave us wokeness. They gave us the radical homosexual movement. They gave us all this liberalism. They forced it down our throats, and then they are now the conservative solution. And so you got all these American Christians and conservatives saying, yeah, Putin, he doesn't tolerate this crazy gay stuff. He believes as men and women and nothing else.
That's right.
But his country gave us that. It's just like the other example. Putin drove 1 million Muslims into Europe. Putin, with his war in Syria, drove 1 million Muslims into Europe. Then that old Russian agent, Angela Merkel, led 1 million of them into Germany. And now all these conservatives all over Germany are going on about Putin's going to help us against the Muslims. Putin's going to help us do this, when he drove the Muslims in, and his communist allies in Germany and France and Britain let them in. It's all, they play both sides. They always play both sides.
It reminds me.
Putin was backing Black Lives Matter and the anti-Black Lives Matter people, both.
Both sides. Well, it's like super schizophrenic, right? I mean, you're the problem and the solution. And we see that in America. We saw that with COVID, right? We saw that with the toxic injections. We saw the virus, first of all, and then you have the injections, and the virus comes from China. Where are we getting all of our you know,
Yeah.
vaccines, quote unquote vaccines. And we also saw that in Germany with the Reichstag fire. And, oh, I have to take control because I have to keep you safe from the fire I started.
That's exactly right. The Nazis burnt down their own parliament, then blamed other people for it. But, like the perfect example in China, they gave us the COVID, then they managed the response. You'll
That's right.
notice all the cities, all the states, all the towns with the worst lockdowns and the most vaccine enforcement, they're all the states where the Chinese have the most influence. They're the states where the Chinese control labor unions to shut down the businesses and the politicians to enforce the legislation. You'll see that in Victoria and Australia. You see that in America with Canada, with California, Oregon, Hawaii, New York, Michigan, all the states where the Chinese run things. That's where we had the worst of it. So they create a problem, then they create a solution. They gave us wokeness, now they're offering a solution. And so they tell us, we hate George Soros, even though George Soros has been their agent forever. So we all hate George Soros. Putin doesn't like George Soros, so Putin must be our friend.
Right.
And Tucker has swallowed this narrative. Tucker is promoting this narrative.
Yeah, and it's so confusing because you wonder, are they deceived too, or are they part of the problem? I mean, that is where I'm like thinking, how do you decipher through all of this? Because it's so psychologically confusing, and it's supposed to be right to
That's all-
confuse you, so you don't know, what the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
What's true? What's right? Who can we rely on? Who can we trust? Who can we not trust? The whole idea of a revolution is to break down trust and cause maximum division. So you have the communists control a radical left. They control, the rioters on the streets and Black Lives Matter and all the Hamas protesters. That's all controlled from China. But the Russians have infiltrated the right. And so they're pushing both directions. Look, a good example, remember the Charlotte, was it the Charlotte riot in 2017, the Charlottesville riot? What was it when the alt-right were battling in the streets?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville.
Yes.
Okay, you had pro-Russian communists battling pro-Russian fascists on the streets. And who got the blame for it? Trump and the conservative movement.
It's all the part of the plan.
Yeah, it is. It's to discredit and bring down. So Trump is a guy who's breaking out of the mold. He's hard to control. So the Russians have put a lot of effort into trying to get people around him who will tilt him in the right direction. And Tucker is helping that process by getting people like Tulsi Gabbard in place. Doesn't mean he's a conscious Russian agent. It just means he's bought the narrative.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's helping America by bringing these pro-Russian people into Trump's orbit.
It's so disturbing. What do you think about his other picks? Like overall, do you have a good feeling about it? Or, I mean, this Trump 2.0 movement, do you feel like he's wiser because of all the weaponization of the government and everything he's been through over the last 4 years?
Look, I think some of his picks are excellent, from Tom Homan and others. I think most of them are appropriate. Laurie Remer, the pick for Labor, she is a leftist. She shouldn't be there. She was a Republican congresswoman, but she's completely in bed with the unions. And I think that was some kind of payoff for the unions. I'm very concerned about her. And I have, as long as RFK stays in his lane on health, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah, same.
And if Elon Musk is confined to Doge, I'm absolutely happy, but he shouldn't be going out there acting like he knows anything about foreign policy.
Well,
You know,
he's concerning with AI. I mean, he's saying that we're going to have, 500,000 humanoid robots in 3 years. He's saying that we'll all be playing video games, that we're going to lose jobs. And he was at the Met Gala in 2017 with a jacket that said New World Order on the back. And Yuval Noah Harari quotes him,
Yeah.
and it's just so concerning.
Well, that's right. Like, you know, and he's got big plants in China. He's been going around telling some absolute lies about Zelensky in the last couple of, just blatant lies that he should know better. So yeah, I think he's a very talented guy. And when he investigates government corruption and that, great, let him go
Yeah.
for it. But all shut them down. But don't let him go around acting like he's the foreign policy spokesman for America. You know,
Yeah.
he's like all brilliant guys. He's got a he's got a dodgy side and a great side, and let's use the good side, but not let him just play us fantasies out of reshaping the world at our expense. You know,
Well,
just
I'm concerned
let
of
him.
his close relationship with President Trump. Not Doge is great. It's incredibly disturbing that we've sent $500,000 to Nepal to advance atheism. Things like that are absolutely insane. But my concern is, Trump seems incredibly open to all the advancements with AI. I mean, his interview with Hannity the other night, Elon and Trump, and Hannity's asking about Neuralink, and he's oh yeah, we're gonna have the lame walk and the blind see just by thinking, and the door that this is going to open up with Neuralink. And he doesn't mention that, oh, by the way, some of the links kind of traveled through the monkeys' heads when we were investigating, but we still got FDA approval to stick them in
Yeah.
human brains. I mean, it's really concerning, actually. And so I'm a little concerned about that, the tightness
Oh
of
yeah.
that relationship.
Well, look, he's got all these visionary ideas, but they are not decisions for him to make. He's not the king. They're decisions for Americans to make through their representatives.
Yes.
And I am concerned too about many of these things. I think he's a talented guy. Keep him in Doge, keep his hands tied on that and let him rip. That's fine. But get out. He's not making our he's not making our foreign policy, and he's certainly not going to decide what technologies we adopt in the future, whether we want them or not. You
Yeah,
know, so
absolutely.
I have concerns in that area, but generally I think Trump's picks are a heck of a lot better this time than last time. But Tulsi is an unmitigated disaster. Lori Reema wants watching, and there's a couple of others that I scratch my head a little bit about, but overall, I'm happy. Overall, I'm very happy with the domestic things that Trump has done. The illegal
Absolutely.
immigration cramdown, all of that. That's fantastic. The Doge, that's fantastic. Where he's been led very badly astray is foreign policy. That is my view. We need to stand with our allies. We need our allies, and we need to understand that Russia and China are allies, and trying to play Russia off against China is about as productive as trying to play Mussolini off against Hitler. It's
Yeah,
going to
good luck.
be faster.
Yeah,
But this is
we could
what,
go a million directions with this too, because we can see with BRICS, he said BRICS is as good as dead, basically. And it's like, yeah, they have almost half of the world's GDP. They're creating their own unit. It's called the unit, 40% gold backed currency. The gold's going to stay in the BRICS own individual countries. I mean, they're quite strong. And to make a statement like that seemed a little arrogant in my humble opinion. But yeah, we can see the weaponization of the dollar and the hegemony of the dollar is being threatened right now, and Russia
yeah.
and China are joining together with the BRICS nations. And so, I mean, I feel like there are things that we've done to encourage the Russia and China alliance, and I feel like the dollar is one of them.
Yeah, look, we should be, Trump should be, when the Russians are struggling, now is the time for Trump to flood the world with oil and send Putin broke. You see if he can run BRICS when he's broke. You
Yeah,
know, this is, if real America first is not making life easier for Russia and China.
yeah,
You know, they are adversaries. The real goal should be put pressure on those countries so their own people overthrow them, and we
yeah.
get a better government in Russia, and we get a liberated China. Imagine what a free China would be like in the
Oh,
world.
I
All
can't
that
even imagine.
that all that culture serving humanity rather than serving the CCP.
Hmm.
That was Trump's vision in the first term. He needs to reinvigorate that, and he ran promising strength strength, peace through security. Now he's talking about cutting the US military budget in half.
Yeah, that's so disturbing. So
Uh,
disturbing. And I before we close the show today, I absolutely want to get into the definition of MAGA communism, and I want to talk about multipolarity. I think these are two. This is
Absolutely.
this is your platform, right? And so, but we could talk about current events till the cows come home, right? But I do find incredibly disturbing how every time people say this, it sends shivers down my spine. But just talking about Canada being the 51st state, and I guess the Panama Canal, I mean, that was the United States doing, but I mean, just going into Denmark or just different countries and just saying, hey, we feel like it would be in our best interest to have you, and clearly, that's how we discovered the United States. I mean, we came over, we took over. I get that, but when I've listened to G. Edward Griffin, and he talks about the New World Order, he talks about the Great Reset, he talks about central bank digital currency and how this can actually happen with over 100 countries and how this could happen smoothly. And he talks about in his book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, he talks about how various countries will start aligning and pooling together. And instead of being individual countries, there'll be regions. And then it will
Yeah.
be easier for regions to be controlled versus all of the countries. And so I can't help but think about what Griffin said when I hear about Canada becoming a 51st state or going and taking over these various countries. It's concerning to me.
Yeah, well, look. That's why the EU was such a dangerous thing. The EU, there was supposed to be a big bloc in Europe, and now then Canada, under the free trade agreements, Canada, Mexico, and the United States were supposed to be another bloc, and these blocs would then be melded into a world order. I think there's a very legitimate argument for taking back the Panama Canal.
Right.
Carter, the traitor, gave that away, but there
Ugh.
was a condition that if American interests were threatened, we could take it back, and I think we should. Greenland is very strategic. I don't want to take back Greenland, but I think if bases were in the North Pole, because the next World War will be fought across the Arctic, so that all makes sense. But look, I want to, right now America is the main power in the world, and the communists call that unipolar. So Dugan came up with this phrase: we need a multipolar world. And Marco Rubio used this phrase the other day. I've heard it used at conservative conventions. Multipolar world means the power diffuses off to Russia and China and Iran and Latin America. This is an old communist program. It means that all the power goes to these other countries, then they unite against us. So we won't have a multipolar world. We'll have a tripolar world run out of Beijing and Havana and Tehran. It is the ultimate scam. Multipolarity is destroying America's leadership in the world so the bad guys can take over. Dugan promotes it. Tucker promotes it. Others around him promote it. It's a communist scam.
Well, I want to read a post you made on X, and it was a direct quote from Alexander Dugin's book. And this is the man that I'm just reminding our listeners, this is the man who Tucker Carlson interviewed and made look like Santa Claus or grandfather. And in his book, Foundations of Geopolitics, and you said it's a book so popular in Russia that it's used as a military textbook. But
Yep.
he said, quote, "It is especially important to introduce geopolitical disorder into internal American activity, encouraging all kinds of separatism and ethnic, social, and racial conflicts, which we're seeing, actively supporting all dissident movements, extremist, racist, and sectarian groups, thus destabilizing internal political processes in the U.S. It would also make sense simultaneously to support isolationist tendencies in American politics." And I mean, that's the
Are we,
goal, right?
are we seeing that?
Yeah.
That 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 is Dugan. That is Russian policy to cause maximum division here, cause America to become isolationist. So we abandon Israel, we abandon Europe, The communists take over those regions, and we find ourselves completely isolated, completely divided, and basically blitzed off the planet. And
But see, they don't
that's
say that, right? They don't say that, hey, this is what we want to do with multipolarity, you know? They don't say
but
that, you know,
that's
we're going to destroy America.
no, they don't. They just talk about, and people say, "Oh, that's good." America shouldn't be the world's policeman, and it shouldn't. But it should be the most powerful country in the world because it's the
Right.
best country in the world. It is the most decent country in the world. You know, so they are saying, "Oh no, we'll spread the power around." No, what they're saying is we'll diminish America's power. We'll increase the power of America's enemies. We'll surround America, and we'll destroy America. This is
Right.
this this is, oh look, I've talked to communists who this has been the Russian and Chinese plan for 100 years. You
Yeah.
know,
It's not
well,
new.
but now it's aimed at the right. It's always been aimed at the left, but now it's been aimed at the right, and it's coming through the libertarian movement. It's coming through QAnon. It's coming through a whole bunch of sources to make Americans feel that their country is the most evil country in the world, and it will be better if we spread things around to Russia and China. And some people even say it would be better if Russia took over America. I'd welcome them as saviors. You know,
Wow, I
that's
know. It's
how bad
it's
it can.
really crazy, isn't it? I mean, especially in these colleges, Pete Hegseth said in the Battle for the American Mind, he called them commanding heights. And, you know, they're in these colleges talking about how great communism is and their Lululemon and Marxism for that matter, and their Lululemon tights, drinking their $7 a cup Starbucks coffee. And it's like, how about you move to North Korea and China and Russia and then get back with me and let me know how great it is.
Yeah, exactly. But, where young kids have no memory of the Cold War, they have no understanding of
Right.
history. They've been brainwashed since grade school. And the big thing that was saving us was a strong conservative movement that understood communism, understood the Constitution, wanted to fight communism and preserve the Constitution. The Russians have got into the right to divide us so that we are no longer the opposition that we used to be. When Reagan was in power, everybody knew the commies were bad, America was basically good, the Constitution was good. It was
Yeah.
pretty straightforward to know which side you stood on. Now the American conservative movement is very confused. And that is mainly because of the Russian penetration of it and the division they have sown. And that's a deliberate policy. And
Well, and we've
Tucker Carlson, people like that, whether they understand it or not, are helping with that process.
oh, it's so disturbing. And really, when we look through time, we see Rockefeller did this. I mean, he claimed to be Baptist. He was this good dude, and he hated capitalism. He hated, you know, all of the things that made the exceptionalism of America. And but he didn't come out and say that, obviously. But it's just it's the same thing that's happened really since the inception of America, and it's just continuing. But I feel like it's getting more and more confusing. But when we look back to the Bolshevik Revolution, we look back to why they were successful. They tried to beat down the Christians, they tried to abuse them, torture them, haul them off. But as you know, far better than most average Americans with your research, Trevor, the most successful tactic they had in destroying Christianity was infiltrating the church. And that's what I see what's happening here with MAGA communism.
Yeah, it is. Infiltrate the Republican Party, infiltrate the conservative movement, cause division, bring it, start Putin Republicans and get us fighting each other. The Chinese just released a document was just recently smuggled out of China, published on J.R. Nyquist's website. It's a great read because what it says is there's three basic constituents in the Trump movement. There's the MAGA people, the traditional Republicans, and the big tech guys, the big tech, Elon Musk and Thiel and all these guys. The Chinese goal is to get all those three factions fighting each other to destroy the Trump movement. So you've already got Steve Bannon attacking Elon Musk over the visa things. You've already got this division coming on. So the Chinese goal is to amp that up. And the Russians are full partners with the Chinese. So they'll be doing this because the goal has always been to bring America down. If you know,
Absolutely.
look, the globalists hate America, the communists hate America, the Islamists hate America. Every totalitarian in the world hates America. And they understand that if Trump is successful and not pulled off course, America's going to be greater than ever before, and their dreams evaporate into dust. That is why this period now is so critical, because both the Russians and the Chinese are doing the best they can to destroy the MAGA movement through sowing division, and that's what's happening.
And what do you recommend an average American do? Like I did a lot of research just following you and digging and diving and listening and learning. But I mean, unless we do that, first of all, we're not even going to know what the word multipolarity means, and that these MAGA communists are infiltrating the MAGA movement to disrupt, deceive, confuse, plant seeds of division and overthrowing governments and things like that. I mean, how do you recommend the average American fight this?
Well, first of all, you believe about 10% of what you see on the internet. Never, ever accept things just because Taka said them. You know, all this idea about, Ukraine suppressing religion, Ukraine being, corrupt. Check out the sources. They're all obscure sources that come from Nigeria. Get real sources, but get a biblical base so you understand your spiritual roots. Read the Constitution and stick with the Constitution. These people want to overthrow the Constitution, diminish the Constitution. America, God and America should be your North Star. What is the use of this country, and treating other nations as we'd like to be treated, like treat our allies fairly, justly, and be willing to stand up for our allies as they will stand up for us.
Yes.
We couldn't have defeated Nazism by ourselves, So yeah, it's that getting that spiritual foundation. Know where you are. Know where you are spiritually. Know where you want to be in 1,000 years' time. Do actions that ensure eternal life. Look at the Constitution, respect America for what it is, and don't be swayed by any of these charlatans who tell you that, we can play Russia off against China. If we just go a bit more socialist, we can be better off in the world. Look, the Constitution should be your political guideline. We follow that, we stick to that, we'll be fine. And
Yes.
discipline Trump, keep him in line,
Mm-hmm.
Praise him for the good stuff he's doing, but be willing to criticize him for the bad stuff.
Yeah.
The only way he's going to ditch Tucker Carlson and people like that around him is if it becomes politically unpopular to do so. We got to be prepared to call these people out. For a long time, I've been very unwilling to call out people that have been my friends, people like Jack Posobiec, who's a great guy, but he is completely suckered in by the Russian propaganda. And so he is helping to lead us astray. So we've got to be willing to call this out.
Yeah. Be brave and courageous. And that's the whole premise of Mission for Freedom, is just not following an R for Republican or a D for Democrat, but follow the T for truth. And like you said, that's the word of God, and that's our Constitution. I love that. It's simple, but it's truth and it's powerful. So, Trevor, how can folks follow you and learn more about this multipolarity and this MAGA communism and the truth?
Well, follow my blog at trevorloudon.com, and my Twitter, my X feed, it's just Trevor Loudon 1. But I just want to say, we're going to need God's help to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to be courageous, because courage tells God you have faith. You can fake faith. You can say, I believe this, I'll do this, whatever. But when you have to put your life on the line, or your business on the line, or your reputation on the line, when you have to be courageous, that tells God that your faith is not fake. So the more courageous we are, the more likely we are to get providential help. And America's
Yeah.
a providential nation. This
Yeah.
nation was made to lead mankind to a better future.
I
But we
love
got to be
that.
courageous and faithful.
Well, on that,
Faith and courage will get us through.
yes, sir. And on that note, we're going to close. We're running out of time, but thank you so much. Thank you for being bold and courageous. And thank you for teaching us the truth and teaching us to do the same. Trevor Loudon, what a blessing it is to get to speak with you tonight. God bless you. And thank you so much for joining me at Mission for
Thank you
Freedom.
so much, Miriam. And thanks so much to all the listeners.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you for joining us. We will be live next Tuesday on X, Rumble, X America News. Give us a follow. Thank you all so much for listening. God bless you and have a great day.